Hey guys, my name is Jeff Gibson. I'm with True Covenant Ministry. If you've seen my videos before, maybe you know it's been a while since I put a teaching video out, but sometimes you just have to back up and renew your spirit. As a teacher, it seems sometimes like I'm just banging my head against the wall. And, sometimes you just have to renew your spirit and get with Yahweh and the Holy Spirit, the Ruach, and renew yourself. And so that's kind of where I've been. Um, if you find yourself watching this video right now, it is not by accident. Okay. I've been away for a little while, but we just finished the sacrament earlier tonight. We're halfway through Passover, and we'll get into that in the year 2024. We're midway right now through that Passover, and we'll talk about that later. But if you find yourself watching this video, it is not by accident. And so, this is like take number 35. It's middle of the night, and I am trying to, I've been I've been accused of being able to take a 20-minute teaching and condense it down into about a 2.5 hour teaching, and I am very guilty of that. And so I've had a teaching tonight. I wanted to get it down to about 20 minutes, and I think my best time so far has been 46. This is my fourth take through it. So we'll see if we can cut it down. But if you find yourself watching this video tonight, it is not by accident. I know your time's valuable, but if it does take 46 minutes, I pray that you'll give me that 46 minutes and that this teaching very well could change your life. And, if you can look at the world today that we live in, and look at all the things going on right now in the Middle East as we're talking in the last few weeks. If you can look at where the earth has been in the last 3 years on this planet, what we've been through, and if you can look at the things that are almost ready to happen, that are right on the horizon, that we all know are fixing to happen, if you can look at all of these things and not realize where we're at in time, then you are blind. Okay, you need to get scales off your eyes and the scales off your ears. Our Messiah said there would be a time when seeing the truth they would not perceive it, and hearing the truth they would not understand it. Okay, that's where we find ourselves today. Paul said that there would be a time would the earth would the church be able to endure sound doctrine? And he said no. They're going to set up for themselves teachers, right? Who are going to tickle their ears, and they will not be able to endure sound doctrine, but they will be all wrapped up in fairy tales. Okay, this is where we are now. I'm not going to go there, but you can check it for yourself. I think it's Jeremiah 16:19, and paraphrasing, but pretty close. It says that in that day of affliction, the Gentiles are going to wake up at the end of time in Jacob's trouble, that day of affliction, and they're going to cry out from all over the earth, and they're going to say, surely our fathers inherited nothing but lies. Our church fathers, these are the Gentiles crying out at the end of time, saying, our church fathers inherited nothing but lies, vanity, things wherein there is no profit. We're not going to go there. That's Jeremiah 16:19. The people he was talking to, it'll be a deal later. He was speaking to the house of Israel. If you go back a couple of verses earlier, about 16:16, and a little maybe 16:14, he's talking to the house of Israel. That'll be a deal later. Um, so, without making this 20-minute video into a 45-minute video, we're going to try and push through this. I do want to say I use a program called eSword. It's a digital Bible it's King James Bible uh, with a Strong's Concordance. I had a friend one time, he said, I don't like that you teach out of that dark Bible. And I said, well, unless King James is a dark Bible, this is the King James Bible and a Strong's Concordance, along with a Brown Driver and Briggs Concordance and a Thayer Concordance. It is not magic. It is not some dark Bible. It's the exact same word for word Bible as the King James. So, anyway, with saying all that, we're going to be talking tonight about Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 through 23. And let's tear right into this so we can try and cut some time out of it. I pray that if if you find yourself here, you will give me the time to show you what we're going to be talking about. We're going to go to Matthew in my e-sword, not a dark Bible, King James version. If you look right here, it's King James plus, which means it's expanded. All these numbers are Strong's numbers or Thayer numbers or Brown Driver and Briggs numbers, mainly Strong's concordance. So anyway, Matthew 7, 21 to 23. This is powerful. And this, if you have not heard this, this will change your life. And this is red letters, our Messiah saying this. What does he say in 21? Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, there's a whole teaching there. We're not going to go there, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Now, we do have to stop and discuss that. Um, what is the will of the Father in heaven? I asked that question. I typed it into Google, and what is the will of the Father? And I got a whole plethora, a whole bouquet of answers, ranging from everything to the Father's will for my wife, the Father's will for my marriage, the Father's will for my job, the Father's will for my home, the Father's will for my prosperity, all of the things that make me happy, right? Okay, this is not all about me. Okay, what is the Father's will? And I can narrow it down to one word, and everybody dances around it, but we're gonna hit it head on. Okay, what is the will of the Father? The will of the Father has always only been one thing. And I don't care from Adam to me. It never changes. Our Father never changes. Okay. I tell people that all the time, and they say, no, he don't change. And what about this? Well, he changed that. But and then what about that? Well, he changed that, but everything else he doesn't. Well, what about that? Well, quit asking me that. So we're not going to go through all these Bible verses. We all know the story. We're going to look at a few of them. Adam and Eve, of course, we all know that there was at least one instruction given and they broke it, right? What did he want for them? Well, he wanted obedience. He didn't get it. Whole nother deal. But let's look at some people throughout Scripture and see what is the will of the Father. Let me see. I need to click that box before I forget. The will of the Father. Let's go. Let's start with Enoch. I mistakenly talking to a relative of mine. I my old cowboy slang. I slipped up and said Enoch, and she had to translate that to her husband, and she said, "Well, he's talking about Enoch." Well, that's his real name was Hanok. My cowboy slang, if I call him Enoch, I'm talking about Enoch. Okay. Uh, what separated Enoch from everybody else? Let's go. Let's just see what it says about him. Uh, the overall pattern of his life was one of pleasing Elohim. So let's get this out of the way. If I say Elohim, understand I'm talking about the Father, the Son, and the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, plural. The Elohim makes it plural. It's the triunity, Elohim. Uh, if I say Elohim instead of God, know that I'm talking about Yahweh, who is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his son Yahshua, who is the Messiah, and the Ruach, I may say, and know that I'm talking about the Holy Spirit. Okay, those are the Hebrew names for those. So when I say Elohim, his life was one pleasing Elohim. The lesson of Enoch's life for all believers in the Messiah is that they walk in obedience to Elohim's commandment. Okay, so what do we take away from Enoch? That he walked in obedience. Okay, let's keep going. Genesis 6:22. We're going to be talking about. We could talk about Methuselah, but we all know he was righteous. He was obedient. Let's go on to Noah. We're going to skip forward a little bit. Noah, Genesis 6:22. This is the very last verse before the flood. Okay, right before they walk onto that ark. So, what does it say about Noah? The ESV version says it this way: Genesis 6:22. Noah did this. He did all that Elohim commanded him. He was obedient. The NIV puts it this way: Noah did everything just as Elohim commanded him. He was obedient. NASB says it like this: Noah did these things according to everything that Elohim had commanded him, so he did. Okay, so he was obedient. Okay, so we're seeing a thread of, it's all a common thread, right? Obedience from Adam to me, right? It doesn't change. Abram, going to Abraham. Let's look at that. Okay. Abram, in truth, his faith was demonstrated by leaving his family in Haran and journeying to unknown lands. He lived in Canaan, the land of promise, waiting for the son of promise, Isaac. Okay. When Elohim spoke to Abraham, changed his name, to get up and, or Abram to get up and get out of the land to a land I will show you, he had to believe and obey. Okay. Spend a minute on this, right? Uh, we've all been told that it was accounted unto him as righteousness that he believed. Well, he not only believed, I mean, Satan believes, he obeyed, right? Uh, and not only in picking up and moving, he also, he had one son by his wife, and he was told, take that son, your beloved son, take that son, and take him to a place I will show you and sacrifice him. Abraham, that's how he got his name, because not only did he believe, Satan believes, he knows, but he was obedient. He did it. Okay. Uh, Not going to go there, but Isaac was not some little 6-year-old kid. Isaac was a grown adult. Okay. There was some faith there and obedience on Isaac's part as well. That's a whole nother teaching, but it's easy to prove. Isaac was not a child. Isaac also obeyed. Jacob, same thing. We're not going to go through a bunch of scripture, but a little bit testy with Jacob, but he ended up getting it right. Okay, let's skip forward to Joseph, right? Uh, Jacob's son. Okay, we all know the story. We're not going to go there and read through all the scripture. Uh, you know, Genesis 48 is going to talk about the blessing that goes through Joseph. Uh, how did he get that blessing? By obedience, right? He became vice pharaoh of Egypt through his obedience. It not only blessed him, but it also blessed his father's house. All of the descendants of Jacob, all 12 of the sons were blessed through Joseph's obedience. Okay. We all know the story. We're not going to spend a lot of time there. Uh, well, let's just keep talking. The judges, when they, or wait a minute, no, let's skip some. Moses. Moses didn't want to go back to Egypt and talk to Pharaoh. Yahweh told him, go tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses said, I can't even talk plain. He's not going to listen to me. I have a speech problem. And Yahweh said, I created your mouth and I created the mouth of all men. I can make it work. Just go. And Moses obeyed. Okay. Fast forward, they all are leaving Egypt, Mitzrayim. Okay. Of all the people that walked out, all the adults that walked out of Mitzrayim, Egypt, 2 adults went all the way through to the promised land. It was Caleb, and Joshua and Caleb. It was not Moshe and Aaron, Moses and Aaron. They didn't make it. Why did they not make it? They were disobedient, right? I mean, they were just paraphrasing real heavy here, but what happened? He told Moses, he said, "You tell your brother Aaron, take off his robe, fold it up neatly, go up on that hill, because I will require his life of him today because of disobedience." There was no grace. Moses, same thing. He struck the rock instead of speaking to it. And he actually pled with God, and he did it several times. It didn't work this time for him. He said, "Well, just, let me just go on in. Well, I'm right here at the promised land. I've brought your people out of Egypt. I've wandered through the wilderness all this time with them. I've babysat them all this time. Just let me go into the land, into the promised land." And Yahweh said, "No, you go up on that high spot and you can look at it, but you're not going in there, and we will speak of it no more." And they didn't. Two people, two adults, walked out of Egypt, made it all the way through the wilderness, and all the way to and into the promised land. And that is Caleb and Joshua. Why did they make it? Obedience. Why did Aaron and Moshe not make it? Disobedience. There was no grace. We take that so for granted. Fast forward. What did he want for them in the promised land? Well, the judges, he wanted them to be obedient. Okay. Samson, fast forward a little bit. What did he want from him? Obedience. He didn't get it really until the very end, but it's a learning lesson, a life lesson. The kings. Okay. You've got Saul, the first king. Why was the kingdom ripped out of his hand? Why did he lose his crown, and why was he killed? Disobedience. Okay, fast forward. David, King David. He was a man after Yahweh's own heart, but he was still disobedient, and it cost him dearly. Cost him a child, and probably more than that. But anyway, David, again, he was a man after Yahweh's own heart. So when he disobeyed, he was quick to repent. And so Yahweh showed him favor for that. Let's fast forward to Solomon. Solomon, he came out of the gate pretty strong, but by the end, he fell. Okay. He totally fell. And he was so disobedient. Yahweh said, because of David, I'm not going to rip the throne from Solomon, but Solomon's son, Rehoboam. I'm going to take 10 of the tribes of the 12 sons of Jacob, 10 of the 12 tribes, I'm going to take away from Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, because of Solomon's disobedience. And so Rehoboam ends up becoming the king of the south, two tribes in the south, and Jeroboam becomes the king of the 10 northern tribes. Okay, we know the story. So, the kings of the north. Why were the 10 northern tribes in the north, why were they taken out captive by the Assyrians? Because of disobedience. Okay. In 720 BC, the 10 northern tribes were removed from the land of Israel and taken captive, and to this day they never have came back. They will. The Messiah, or the prophets clearly say they will return at the end of time. Okay, so we'll touch on that later. The house of Judah, the house of Israel in the north, the house of Judah in the south. The house of Judah, the Jewish people, were taken captive by the Babylonians. Why were they taken captive? 120 years after the house of Israel was taken captive, the house of Judah was taken off into captivity into Babylon. We all know the story. Jeremiah's talking about it. Ezekiel's talking about it. But anyway, why were they taken captive? Because of disobedience. I can keep going on and on and on. What is the will of the Father? It has always only been one thing. He always wanted them to be obedient. Okay, but they never seemed to make it. Okay, so he sent his son, and we know the story. So here we find ourselves now. The son is speaking in Matthew 7:21 through 23. That's where we find ourselves right now. So anyway, um, let's see. I got off on the notes a little bit here, but let's go back and let's look at not a dark Bible. We're looking at eastward. Verse 22. Okay, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, again, a whole teaching. We're not going to go there. We're going to try and shorten this. Have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils? In thy name have done many wonderful works. So we got to talk about that one a second. These were not just people holding down a cushion on a church pew every Sunday. These were the people in that day at the end of time who said to our Messiah, we've cast out demons in your name. These guys were, how many people do you know that have cast out demons? Okay. How many people do you know that are prophesying in the name of uh, saying, Lord, Lord, we've prophesied in your name? How many people do you know who are doing marvelous works in his name? And by that, I mean healing, laying on hands, marvelous works. How many people do you know that are actually doing that? These people were not just keeping a seat warm on Sunday. These people were prophesying, healing, uh, casting out demons. And what was our Messiah's response to them? It's going to be the hardest words ever heard. Okay. Let's finish it out. Uh, let's go on to verse 23. And then we've cast out demons in your name. We've healed the sick. We've done all these marvelous things. We've prophesied in your name, and I will profess to them, friend, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. Those words will be the hardest words humanity will ever hear. Um, Tough words. That's going to be a bad day. Okay, so let's see, what is iniquity? Let's break these things down. Okay, we have a Strong's Concordance. Let's go to the Greek word. Iniquity is going to be G458. Strong's Concordance is not some magic book. It's a Strong's Concordance in a King James Bible. Iniquity means illegality, violation of the law, wickedness, inequity, transgression of the law. Okay. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. That word law means Torah. Okay. Let's look at Thayer. Okay. Concordance. Same word, G458. Thayer definition. The condition without the law, the Torah, because they are ignorant of it. Okay. Because of violating it. Contempt and violation for the law, iniquity, wickedness, contempt of the Torah. My friends, we have been, our fathers inherited lies, and they translated that word as law. That is so cold and harsh and legal. We're going to find out the true definition. We're going to look at a bunch of different definitions, a true definition of that word Torah. Okay. While we're here, let's go on. We're close. Let's just go look at it while we're there. John also gives a pretty good definition of it. Let's go to 1 John 3:4. 1 John 3:4. And John, this is the disciple that our Messiah loved. And he said this, whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the Torah, the law. Same word, G458. They're transgressing the Torah. If you follow that out, it clearly says not only the Torah, but the Torah, the law given to Moses specifically. Okay, follow that out. That's where it goes. We're going to see that. For sin is transgression of the Torah, the law given to Moses. Okay, words have meaning, guys, and we can't play around anymore. It's getting real. Okay, and so let's go define Torah and look at some other definitions of Torah. Law was a terrible translation. Our Jeremiah 16:19. In that day of affliction, the Gentiles are going to cry out from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers inherited lies, vanity. Things were in there as no profit. this word Torah has been made a dirty word in the church today. You don't put us under the Torah. Okay, it's a dirty word. Okay, we're going to find out. Let's look at what Torah really means. Okay, so we're going to go to, I think here, and we're going to look. Hebrew word of the day is that word Torah. Read from left to right, Torah. The Old Testament is also called the Tanakh. Okay, another word. Well, actually, we'll read about it. In Hebrew, it is not a name, but the initials of three sections of the Old Testament, the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim. The Torah is where we're going to focus. The Torah is the first five books. The Tanakh means the Torah, the writings, and the prophets. It's the Old Testament. Okay. But Torah specifically, we're going to find out, is the law. Okay. Law, I will submit to you, was a terrible definition. Our fathers inherited lies, and we've inherited from them. Now we're going to go to Encyclopedia Britannica. The Torah in Judaism, in the broadest sense, the substance of divine revelation to Israel, the Jewish people. Okay, I just got a comment on it. There are 12, Jacob had 12 sons. Judah, the house of Judah accounted for two of them, Benjamin and Judah. The other 10 were lost. They became the Gentiles. They are the lost 10 tribes. But at the very least, they melded in with the Gentiles. At the very least, we're grafted back into that, right? Okay, so we're a descendant of Abraham, if at the very least grafted in, but I think even more than that, and I can prove that on another video, but not tonight. Elohim's revealed teaching or guidance to humankind. That is what Torah means. It's not legalistic. It is not harsh and cold. It is teaching. It is guidance. It is instruction. Okay. Let's look at again in Strong's in the Hebrew. This is the Hebrew word Torah. It's a H8451. It means instruction, instructions. They have the law mentioned, but it's terrible definition. It's more about the instructions and the teachings. It is not cold and harsh and legal. It is loving instruction and teaching and guidance. Okay. Let's look at another quick verse real quick. I'm adding to it, but let's look. We're going to go to Jeremiah 31:31. I'm taking a 20-minute teaching, going 2.5 hours, but it's important. Okay. Jeremiah 31:31. Now we should all know this verse or these verses. 31:31. Oh, okay. Behold, in the days come, saith Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant. Or what covenant are we in? We're in this new covenant, right? With the house of Israel. We've talked about who those people are. They're the northern 10 tribes. And with the house of Judah. The house of Israel and the house of Judah are not the same people. The house of Israel was scattered. They have not come back. The house of Judah, many of them are in the land today, the Jewish people. This is a covenant I will make with the house of Israel, the 10 northern tribes, and the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with the fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant, which they broke, by the way, although I was a husband to them, saith Yahweh. Okay. That's the last time the house of Judah, the Jewish people, are mentioned. Let's go on to verse 33. But this shall be the covenant I will make with the house of Israel, the northern 10 tribes, after those days. Okay, who's writing this? This is Jeremiah, so we're in about 600 BC. This is 900 years after Sinai. So this is not the Sinai covenant. He said clearly, you guys broke that one. So this is that new covenant. There's only one covenant after that. That's the one that we're in, this new covenant. After those days, saith Yahweh, I will put my law in their inward parts. What is that word law? That is, come on, switch for me. I don't know why it ain't switching. Law. We can see it there. That is the word Torah. I will put my Torah, the law of Moses, in their inward parts, and I will write it in their hearts, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. We claim this verse, right? That he's going to write his Torah, his instructions to Moses on our hearts. Okay. So, there we go. Torah, Torah. Okay. The Torah, the law given to Moses. I'm going to write that on your hearts. Okay. That's, we're claiming that's us. How is the Torah written on your hearts? Because I think that's the problem our Messiah is having. Is he saying, you may be prophesying my name, you may be healing the sick, you may be casting out demons, but I don't know you, my friend. Leave, because I don't know you, you who are not keeping the Torah given to Moses. Words have meaning. Okay. I have to say, there's a video I got to put on here. It's called The Chosen. It's a series. Maybe you've watched it. It makes my heart leap because I watched this video and they got it right. And so let's watch a clip of that really quick. And we're going to wind this thing down.
What about Elisha and Naaman?
Well,
And Naaman. There were many lepers in Israel during this time. None of them were cleansed, except Naaman. Only a Gentile, a Syrian soldier, an enemy of the Lord's people. But he was so desperate, he trusted Elisha, and his leprosy was cleansed. You may be the chosen seed of Abraham. You may be the people of the covenants, but that will not bring you my salvation. If you cannot accept that you are spiritually poor and captive in the same way that a Gentile woman and a Syrian leper recognize their need, if you do not realize that you need a year of the Lord's favor, then I cannot save you. Who do you think you are?
This is what Hannah talked about. That he even called himself the Messiah.
Are you claiming to be the Messiah? Or are you merely claiming to speak for the Lord as a prophet?
Yes.
You are a false prophet.
Whoa, that is quite a thing to say. Jesus, maybe we should leave.
Lazarus, you're his friend. You cannot be involved. You know what the law of Moses says.
We are all his friends, Aaron. We cannot say things like this.
Jesus, stand up at once.
Rabbi, please. Rafi, come with Jesus and me. No. We will leave, and you can all continue the service.
Rabbi Benjamin has asserted false prophecy, and I cannot argue.
You said you saw the miracle.
He's saying only he can save
He
us.
did not use those words.
It's what I meant.
Jesus, you're not helping.
Stop. He's saying we are not the holy ones chosen.
Now, he did not say that.
In words, a book of Moses. But the prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name that I have not commanded him to speak, that same prophet shall die.
Rabbi Benjamin, I beg of you, not this.
Lazarus, it's fine.
Jesus, they're going to...
Jesus, if you do not renounce your words, we will have no choice but to follow the law of Moses.
I am the law of Moses.
You know, every time I watch that video clip, it just makes my heart jump for joy. Um, they got that right. I cannot tell you anything else about that series. I've not watched much of it. I've seen a few minutes of it, but I've watched that video clip and they got that part right. And what you'll notice if you go back and watch that whole video clip, it's on YouTube. Um, our Messiah is sitting in the seat of Moses in the synagogue and he is teaching. That means very little to the church today, but what that actually is saying is that he is sitting in the seat of Moses, which means he is reading the words given to Moses. And you cannot deviate from that. And this rabbi gets upset with him and he says, "You are not presuming to say a word that I have not cleared you to say, are you?" And it escalates. And finally, the rabbi says, "You are not saying you are greater than the law given to Moses." And our Messiah stood there and he got very personal and he said, "I am the law given to Moses." That is very true and very accurate. I had a loved one recently that asked me the same question in reverse. They asked me, "Well, you're not saying that the law given to Moses is greater than our Messiah." And I said, "The law given to Moses is our Messiah. He is the word that became flesh and tabernacled among men." What word do you think that is? There was no New Testament at that time that was written. Our Messiah was the word that tabernacled among men. He was the Torah and the prophets that tabernacled among men. He was the word. Okay. Our Messiah is the word. He is the Torah and the prophets. And somehow, you know, we've come to a point in our church today where it cannot endure sound doctrine. We've inherited lies from our fathers, things wherein there is no profit. The Torah is not a dirty word. It is our Messiah. Um, the Torah is not legalistic and cold and harsh. The Torah is love. It is guidance. It is instruction. It is the very same thing we give to our children, right? We give them instruction and guidance not to be harsh to them out of love. It's the same thing when our Father gives us instructions and says, "This is how you are to live." Okay, you are to treat each other equitably. You are to, you know, I have loved ones who do not keep the Torah. And there is very little difference in our belief, very little. The day that we worship on the Sabbath. We keep the feast days, you know, and, you know, there's a little bit of difference in our diet, not much, a little bit. Um, bringing up the feast, there's a good example there. We are halfway as we speak right now. We're in the middle toward the end of the Passover in the year 2024. The Passover and Easter, Ishtar, are about as far apart as they've ever been, or they can be. They're about a month apart, but it shows a difference between the two. Our Messiah was not crucified on Easter. Our Messiah was crucified on Passover. He was the Passover lamb. He had to be off the cross before sundown on before the Passover began in God's calendar, which is really all it counts. The day begins at sundown. Okay, so he was on the cross up till they had to have him off the cross and put into the tomb before sundown on the Passover. Okay, uh, and so you get to Passover, and then it's a series of feasts that last 1 week. Okay, it's not just the Passover. 24 hours after the Passover begins at sundown begins the second part of the feast, that is unleavened bread. Our Messiah was the Passover lamb. He was unleavened. Unleavened means without sin. He was unleavened. And so We're just completing the phase this year in the Passover celebration of unleavened bread, and it just has come to a conclusion at sundown last night. Okay, somewhere in that Passover week, there will be a weekly Sabbath. Somewhere it could be in the beginning of the week, could be in the middle of the week, could be at the end of the week. It just how it falls that particular year. This year, that weekly Sabbath was on April the 27th. And at sundown on April the 27th begins the third cycle of that feast, which is first fruits. Okay. Um, the significance of our Messiah's resurrection is not that it was on the first day. The significance of our Messiah's resurrection is that it was on first fruits. He was the first fruit to be raised up from the earth to go and appear before the throne in heaven. He was the first one to be redeemed, taken up. Redeemed is probably not a good word. He was the first one to be carried up into heaven of all mankind. And the significance is not that it was on Sunday, the first day. The significance is that it was on the day of first fruits, the feast of first fruits. And I guarantee you, when that ray of light, that sun come up, and that very first ray of light hit that tomb on first fruits, he was out of there. He was not required to stay any more than he had to. Now, he had to fulfill the sign of Jonah, right? And this is where we start to see a separation. We are never instructed to keep a holy day to a pagan god. Yahweh never tells us that, not one time. We are instructed to keep the Passover. We are instructed to keep unleavened bread. We are instructed to keep first fruits throughout all of our houses, throughout all of our generations, for eternity. Even into the millennium, we see that that keeps going on. Okay? Yahweh does not change. Men change. Yahweh does not change. The significance of the resurrection is not that it was on Sunday, the first day. It was that it was on the feast of first fruits. Our Messiah had to fulfill the sign of Jonah. And he says, I'm going to give one sign and one sign only to a wicked and adulterous generation. I used to think that meant I was evil and cheating on my wife, but if you look it up, it actually means wicked, like a wick, a candle wick. You're taking things and you're stranding them together like a wick. And you are adulterous. You are whoring with other gods. You are a wicked and adulterous generation. You are taking things from other gods and you are wicking them together with me. And he said, I only have one sign to a wicked and adulterous generation. Just as Jonah was in the belly of the earth 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the belly of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. And I guarantee you, Einstein cannot get 3 days and 3 nights from Good Friday to Easter Sunday. You cannot do it. And we take God's calendar because really that's all that matters. Even if you go on the Julian calendar, it doesn't work. But let's start at sundown on Friday night. He had to be off the cross Friday night at sundown. So you got Friday night, you have Saturday morning, you have Saturday night, and you have Sunday morning. You have 2 days and 2 nights. You cannot get 3 days and 3 nights out of Easter. It's impossible. You have to go from the Passover to get the 3 days and 3 nights. And what our Messiah is telling us, my camera's wigging out on me here. But anyway, what our Messiah is telling us here, I'm only going to give you one sign. If you cannot pass this one test, you better reevaluate where you're at. Okay, we were never told to worship a holy day to a pagan god. There is no prophet in the Easter Bunny. Okay. Paul said, will the church be able to endure sound doctrine? He said, no, they're going to set up for themselves people who are tickling their ears, and they're going to be believing in fairy tales. Well, every year we dress our kids all up in their best clothes and we send them out to chase Ishtar eggs. Our fathers inherited lies. Our church fathers inherited lies and vanity, things wherein there is no profit. There is no profit in an Ishtar bunny. That's a fairy tale. And we are right exactly where the prophet said we would be. We are right exactly where Paul said we would be. And we better reevaluate ourselves very seriously. You know, the word says, I'm not making this up, the path is narrow. Most are not going to find it. What sets you apart from the guy sitting beside you on the pew, or for that matter, the guy in the church up the block, or for that matter, the guy in the church, you know, across the country? What sets you apart? What is different about you than him? The path is narrow. Well, do you believe stronger? My faith is stronger than theirs. Yeah, that's a bold statement. I've seen a lot of people who strongly believe, but the path is narrow and most will not find it. People say, well, that's not what it means to me. When you become God, that'll count. The truth does not care what you believe, what it means to you. The truth is the truth. And so, you know, look around. You know, every day right now is a gift. We're in a point in time, and I see the church getting very nervous. I see a time when the church is looking at the events going on around the world, and I talk to people in the church, and it's like, well, I really don't want to talk about it. That's kind of the response I get. If we look at world events going on in the Middle East right now, it would not surprise me one bit if I woke up tomorrow and found out that the war of Gog and Magog had begun. All right, we're watching the prelude to that. We're living in a time where the rabbis in the land right now, the Jewish rabbis, the Sanhedrin, brought in 5 red heifers. They have plans for those red heifers of sacrificing them to cleanse them, the priests, and begin the building process of the temple. We live in a time when the prime minister of Israel comes out and he says, you know, when it comes to the temple, he said, you know, the West may go to bed one night and the temple is not there, and they may wake up the next morning and it will be there. I'm assuming they have something that they can set up very quickly. You know, we live in a time where, you know, prophecies, we just watched one happen last year during the Feast of Sukkot on the 6th day, prophecy about how the remnant of the seed of the Levites would appear at the end of time out of nowhere and right on schedule. You know, to rebuild the temple, they had to have, first of all, they had to have the pool of Siloam. They had to draw water from the pool. And 4 years ago, ish, they were digging a pipeline and they hit something and they got to look, and it was the pool of Siloam. So they've excavated part of it. They were able to put water in part of that. And last year during Sukkot, the priests, and I was telling everybody, they're not able to do it. The Sanhedrin cannot do that, but they were trying. They were down at the Pool of Siloam, and they were using a libation pitcher to draw water out of this Pool of Siloam. And it had to be the Levites, but the Sanhedrin were going to give it a go, I guess. I don't know. But then out of the blue, trumpets started blowing, and the cameras panned up, and up above everybody, up above the steps at the Pool of Siloam, here come the Levite priests in full dress and with all of their musical instruments. And they said, you know, move aside. This is our job. Okay, we watched that happen. This has been prophesied for 2,700 years, and I can play the video for you. We're living in a time where world events every day today from now on is a gift to us. We better make the best of it. And so, you know I've gone over my time. I was hoping I could get this into a 20-minute video, but it's just too much to cover. And so if you've made it to this point, you know, if we're probably going to wind up at about 45 minutes in that neighborhood. If your life is not worth 45 minutes to you, then you probably have bigger problems anyway, right? So, but if you've made it to this point, we're going, you know, I guess they tell me, you know, like and subscribe. I'm just an old cowboy, I don't know. But I guess that helps get it out there. So like, if you have learned something today, like and subscribe, and we will be putting out a new video, going to try every Sabbath, and I'm going to try and keep them shorter. Everybody tells me, get them down to 20 minutes or less. Dadgummit, if your life isn't worth a little bit of time, seek and you will find me. We're told the path is narrow. Most people aren't going to find it. What sets you apart in your church from the guy sitting beside you or behind you? For that matter, what sets you apart from the guy at the church across town? What sets you apart from the guy in the church across the country or on the other side of in Europe? What sets you apart from them? Do you somehow have a stronger belief than they do? Well, that's a bold statement. I've seen a lot of people who have very strong belief, but we're told the path is narrow. Most won't find it. I'm not making that up. Okay. What sets you apart? I think the same thing that our Messiah was saying in Matthew 7:23. You're going to be, people will be saying, we've prophesied in your name. We've cast out demons in your name. We have done marvelous works in your name. And he's going to say, depart from me. I never knew you, you who practice lawlessness, Torahlessness. Um, you know, words have meanings, and the truth does not care about our feelings. So the path is narrow. If you find yourself here, join us next week. We'll be putting out another video on the next Sabbath, and so guys, we love you, and we'll talk to you next time.